Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week, we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, where you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Hello, everyone. This is the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, sponsored by Never Too Late Cafe. And today we have part 2 of Rebecca Henderson. You've written plays, you've written other things, because I think in our conversation, you had talked about being in several books, like you had written something that ended up in books. Can you share about that?
Well, the most recent book is called The Dark Light of the Soul, Encounters with Gabrielle Roth. And it's compiled and edited by Eliezer Sobel with a foreword by Andrew Harvey. And then these beautiful photographs that people from all over the world had taken of Gabrielle Roth, and many that her now late husband, he just died, Robert Ansel, had taken of Gabrielle. So I'm really happy to have been asked to be in this. It took Eliezer a long time to compile it, because he said, it would have been 500 pages if he wanted to print everybody's pieces, but it would have been too heavy to mail. Too expensive to print and all that. So how many people? I think only about 100 people or 90 people got into this, and one of them was me. And he had asked me to just write all my memories of Gabrielle that I could. I had drawings of her, I had poems, and he was going to put it all in, but I was so pleased that I got 2 pages, whereas I got 2 whole pages in this book. And Andrew Harvey, oh my goodness, he is a Rumi, Rumi, the Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi, a Sufi poet, and he is a Rumi scholar, and writes. He's a mystic. You see him many books by Andrew Harvey. So the foreword is by him, and he was a friend of Gabrielle Roth's. And Eliezer Sobel is a 5 rhythms teacher, a playwright, a musician, and often writes for Psychology Today. You see a lot of his writing, particularly on the elder care. Anyway, he's funny. And so was Gabrielle was funny and fierce. So the book is called Dark Light of the Soul, Encounters with Gabrielle Roth. And I'll just turn to my page here and read a. Oh, well, here's a quote from Gabrielle right in the beginning. It has always been my yearning to dance toward the one. And the word one is capitalized O, and in little letters, O-N-E. It has always been my yearning to dance toward the one, to dance cheek to cheek with God. Because she would say, the spirit and the body are not separate. It's all God. It's all, and that's why you accept it and turn it into art. This doesn't mean, go along with injustice or harm. That it's just keep knowing who you are. Keep knowing. Maybe she used to say, well, after all, there's only one of us here. So yeah, it takes a while to think about that, or feel it, or dance it, or write it, or breathe it. So if you turn over to page 269 in this book, it's a compilation of about 20 pages that I'd sent Eliezer. So it says, Rebecca Henderson, Louisville, Kentucky. Rebecca Henderson, the Bluegrass Gypsy, is a published playwright, storyteller, and ukulele player who is devoted to Gabrielle in the divine and never knows how anything happens. People think because I've read 20,000 poems in 10 different countries, I know what's going to happen. But what I know from doing all that is that if I can even have a sense of who I am and what I'm wearing and where I'm sitting or standing, then maybe I have enough room to be with you and listen, see. So I read a poem aloud in a workshop, and Gabrielle said, "You rocked that writing, Rebecca. Amazing how timid I can be." She helped me see that I am timid sometimes. She taught me courage through the wordless journey of movement in emptiness. And she reminded us that the hands are the messengers of the heart, and the hands writing are the spider's dance of the mind, grounding its chaos into the art form of writing. I had profound dreams that summer of spiders. She directed us all to dance nursery rhymes and dropped a line to me about the itsy bitsy spider. And when it gets washed out, how it simply begins again. And each day during that month-long gathering, she would make sure the bees stayed outside. If a stray one got in, she would say, "Wait, we have to get rid of that bee. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, we have to get that bee out of here. I hate bees. Could someone help? Please be careful." "I am always looking for the exit door," she said. "I check that out first thing when I get into any room." That stuck with me because in theater history, I had been a theater major. I learned how many people had died in fires caused by footlights, candles floating in oil pots at the front of the stage. And later, the gas lights also trapped many audiences and actors in theater fires. She would have us explore a room and the empty space just to notice where the edges were and the exits, windows, ceiling, floor, and then any shapes or feelings that had no words. If you don't do your dance, who will? That was a quote by her. The repetitions exercise became my nightmare. Gabrielle threw a glass of water on me. I was all wet then. No, this is all, he's excerpted this from, we used to do, I did 3 month-long, where we would dance every day with about 60 people. This one particular month-long with the bees, actually Mitch McConnell's now son-in-law from his first marriage was he met his wife on a Five Rhythms dance floor in England.
Oh,
anyway,
wow.
Yeah, and they have a little baby because Laura, when I was doing another theater workshop in New York City in 2018, and our good friend Peter Fedora was running the sound and teaching with Lorca, and I've been in several plays that were developed in an ensemble movement work method that we do in the Five Rhythms theater branch, which is called Live Wire. And it was called Love Letters to a Raven. So it's slated to go to off-Broadway at some point. The pandemic just put a big kibosh on it, and we had created it at Hip Pocket Theater in Fort Worth, Texas. And anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I sat down with Peter, and he said, "How are things in Kentucky, Rebecca?" And I said, "Well, in my opinion, in my opinion, they'd be a little bit better if our senator, Mitch McConnell, I didn't say his name at the time, would be touched by the Five Rhythms and somehow stand up in the Senate and just put one hand over his belly button and one hand over his heart and invite the Senate to join him in that, and say that now we will dance for 1 minute in place silently. And then we'll talk, because we'll dance first and then speak. And that's the natural order of things. Because it settles the mind to breathe and move before you speak. It gives you an elegance, I think. Anyway, so then Peter said to me, well, that can happen. I said, well, how? And he said, well, his son-in-law, Mitch McConnell's son-in-law, is a 5 rhythms teacher. And I said, oh, who? I'm an old timer. I'm an elder. Who is it? And he said, Richard Duran. And I said, oh my goodness. In the month long I did with him, he's an Englishman. He had some sort of disease, and he felt he was going to die. And then Peter said, yes, he thought that. And then he fell in love with Claire McConnell on a dance floor in England. And he got better and better. And they have a son. And so, and Mitch's first wife is a feminist folklorist.
Wow, that's amazing.
Isn't it amazing? So in that, I mean, I'm not saying what will happen, but the way life works is like ripples in a wave in the ocean. It kind of goes out and touches. Who knows? And the word HU in Persian, I learned this from Adnan and also Kabir and Camille Helminski, Sufi dancers. Gabrielle was the first person who ever said Rumi to me. And so, these ripples go out through the blood and the bones and the grandchildren. And who knows? I'm waiting to see what happens with Mitch McConnell. I used to see him I was the palm reader for 28 years for the Cornelius Vanderbilt Whitney and Mary Lou Whitney Derby parties in Lexington, Kentucky. And so then I wrote an article, I think I sent it to you, for the Shelby County Historic magazine, because Sherry Jelsma, who published that for many years, was hearing me talk about reading palms at the Derby parties. And she said, you have to write for the history magazine. And I said, what would I write? She said, what you're speaking, because you are speaking Kentucky history. And so when I started, I said, where do I start? And she said, well, you'll figure it out. So I took about a year and a half and realized that when the pandemic began, I would start with Rock Hudson, because I read his poem in May and he died in November. And it's just interesting how
I had no idea he wrote.
Or the haptic. What?
I had no idea he wrote poetry.
No, I read his hand.
Poem. Excuse me.
See, that's how it happens. You say, I read his
poem.
Poem. Yeah, I was the palm reader for the Cornelius Vanderbilt Whitney Derby parties and Mary Lou. So in researching, and that was I started that in probably 1980 maybe, when I'd first come back to Louisville. And that's where I read Captain Mark Phillips' poem. The first time it was Mary Lou had seen an article written on me in the Lexington Herald paper, and my friend Jean Williams. And so, that's a long story. That's a wonderful story. And we went out and read poems, and there was a tall Englishman. And at the end, Mary Lou said, what did you tell Mark? And nobody signs a HIPAA agreement with me. So I don't know who was Mark. And I said, what was he wearing? Who was Mark and what was he wearing? And she said, he was wearing a red and white striped shirt. And I said, wow. I told him that he had two duties. One was to his own dreams and desires, and it was important for him to fulfill those. And then the other was like a definite, I've never seen such a fate line of duty to tradition. And she rolled her eyes and she said, "Oh, Rebecca, of course, that he's the Queen's son-in-law. Everybody knows that." But I didn't know that. I had no clue who the guy was. and so from then on, we read at every equestrian event. Captain Mark Phillips was a great polo player, probably still is. And so yes, there was Henry Kissinger and Gloria Vanderbilt and all the governors of Kentucky, except for Wallace Wilkinson, and so many people. Walter Cronkite. It was really amazing. So then, when I had to write the article, I went back because the internet had been invented, and I could sort of see what I was in. I was just. Many people would say, "I wish I was a fly on the wall at that party." Oh, and Lester Lannon and his marvelous. Oh well, it was great. 28 years of that. So, but back to so that's how did I send you that, Laura? I had to keep it to 2058 words or something like that. So I did. But yes. So
I know that you like this part of when you talked to me before. We talked a little bit about how much fun it is and to co-create, and the theater is that those projects. And I agree completely. There's something, sometimes you'll start out one way and it goes another way and it's even better, so can you tell us a little bit about how co-creating on projects is for you?
Fun. I think when I was a little girl, to get the neighborhood kids together, and we had lots of packing boxes of the Mayflower Moving Company, big ships on the side drawn on there. And I liked stories. I loved the library. And remember Baba Yaga? She was a Russian witch who lived in a chicken house, a house out in the woods, and she had a cat. And
I'm not familiar with that. Go ahead.
Baba Yaga, yes. So anyway, the cat gets into all kinds of things because Baba Yaga will send the cat on tasks like to gather spider webs from all over Russia, so that that Baba Yaga could put together a baby blanket for the Tsarina and the Tsar's new baby in one of the stories. And the webs have to be gathered right at the moment of the dew fall, so that the little blanket would have like a beautiful diamond, like starry reflective things on the blanket that wouldn't hurt the baby. So the cat had to go out and gather all these, and there was a specific number of them, and the cat got all of them except for this one where there was a really big spider. Anyway, things like that. She always had tasks for people. And she lived in a house that sat on 3 chicken legs, and it had a big rooster. It was a rooster cock head at the top, and the wattle, all of that. And the way she told time, or the people around there, the rooster would crow on the hour, and the whole house would turn around every time the hour turned, and cock-a-doodle-doo. So Baba Yaga, I liked that. So I would turn the moving boxes and my sister and brother and I'd gather whoever was in our neighborhoods that we made friends with, because we would have to change schools a lot if we moved about every 5 years, and just paint them, draw on it, just make stuff and tell stories at slumber parties. And
And you had said something about theater can't be done alone, so it has to be co-created.
right,
You know,
so
it's not just
get
one
the
person.
neighborhood kids have, older kids than me would have these circuses on my grandmother's hill where I'd stayed, and they would gather together and we'd make a circus. And I thought that was a lot of fun. It was so much fun. And so yeah, I'd usually be the gypsy fortune teller, because I liked reading books about gypsies and horses and boots and discovering things, and dancing around the fire and telling stories. My grandmothers were both good storytellers, and my mom, and they would let me tell my dreams. My mom was superstitious, and she'd say, "Do not tell your dream before breakfast. It's bad luck." So, but both grannies would let me tell my dreams whenever I wanted. So being with other people, making things, and having a framework. Like a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it goes crazy in the middle. Like the Mickey Mouse Club, when we got a TV, seeing all those Mouseketeers working together, opening a drawer, picking something out, and making a story out of it, or a song.
Yeah,
Does
those are
your
fond memories. So you have also done
Louisville area fiber and textile artist.
okay.
Just gathering. Yeah, I always liked drawing, and would draw the newspaper contests and send those in, and usually I'd win a box of oil pastels, or we'd move to a new community and I wouldn't know anyone, and I'd watch TV and send in a drawing, and I'd get, or how did that go? Sometimes I'd just be in class and I'd memorize a poem or write something, and how did that? Yeah, it just was so interesting it was easy to memorize a poem and say it. Always did that. And so I got the scholarship in theater, but then I had to take fencing. I had to take PE, and that led in the UK. It was called dance. I mean, it was listed as dance. So I took fencing, and the next thing I knew, I got to be on the fencing team. At the
oh my goodness,
University of Kentucky, and the teacher was Egyptian. Egypt has kind of followed me through a lucky thread, and I can go on and on, but you find a little spark or drawing or something you like to do, and follow that thread, and then there will be a tribe or a like-minded people, and it's kind of fun. Or you're doing a movement and somebody does it too, and it turns into something else. There, on the Mickey Mouse Club, there was an anything can happen day, and I found that's true. On any given day, anything can happen.
That's true. Absolutely. And things can change in a heartbeat. So tell me about your one-woman shows that you've done.
Well, actually, Frog's Milk Pump Works started out as that.
Okay.
And then I would ask whoever was in the audience to join me, or storytelling with the Kentucky Storytellers Association. And so those turned into one woman shows, or storytelling. I've how to say this? I think it would be fun, sort of, to go on tour, just being myself. Yeah, because who else am I going to be? But right. If you study theater, the truth about doing any kind of acting is that you never leave yourself. It's just remembering how big you are, like like Carl Sagan, when people said he didn't like God or he didn't believe in God, I read a quote from his wife that said that he said, "Oh no, I never, I it's not that I don't believe God. I just don't believe that most religions make God big enough."
Oh, interesting perspective.
Uh-huh. And that the when you do any kind of live theater, uh, you never know when the air conditioning is going to go out, and it's hotter than Hades in Arrow Rock, Missouri, at the beginning of the Santa Fe Trail, and you've got fake snow and maybe somebody doesn't want to glue on their mustache. This was back in the olden days with spirit glue, and they just draw it on with um, an oil stick pencil, and then they kiss somebody on stage and forget about that they're burning up, and the mustache gets printed on the mother's mouth in hay fever, just above her or on her cheek. And the doors open and you're supposed to look shocked that it's your mother, and she's got this big mustache on her. It's or in the mousetrap, the murderer sneaking up behind me. I was Molly, the young woman who had restored the castle, but the three blind mice kept being whistled, in the Agatha Christie, and the murderer is coming in to strangle Molly, and she's remembering the three little children that when she was ill and they were her students, and she left the school, and then they were farmed out to foster. Anyway, his gloved hands are coming behind her, and the whole audience is screaming, "Look behind you! Look behind you! He's gonna murder you!" And you have to pretend. So I know that Bruce is coming, or the snow isn't real, and the grease paint is melting down. But to be able to pretend with everybody is just fun, and to remember that, and to find places in your voice to project not only your sound and change it in any way you want, or these kinds of things, to make lifelong friends, or to make a friend with yourself, and know that you never leave yourself. But you can
that.
Yeah, you can find your muscles. I mean, I wasn't always able to raise both eyebrows, one at a time, or touch the tip of my tongue to my nose. Who knew I could do that? And if I hadn't been in an acting class, it's just learning that all this stuff can be fun and useful, and playing with people and making sounds together, and seeing how it turns out and resolves itself. Does that answer what you're asking?
It does. And I can say that we met at what they're now calling the inaugural of Wood Song's Artist Picnic, the gathering in Louisville. And you did sort of a skit dance. So improv must be one of your skills, just to think up something and do it. That takes a great deal of confidence and belief in yourself,
and trust in your body and the people. Yes, exactly what you said. I had fabric. You can use, and you use what you have, and where you are. And the practice of the 5 rhythms, the practice of theater, the practice of and there's a word called entrainment. I have a certificate in being a music together teacher.
Okay.
And that is a practice that a woman, Dr. Lily Levinowitz, started, and she worked with, I don't know if you remember, Savion Glover was a little boy in the movie about tap dancing with Gregory Hines, but he grew up to be an amazing tap dancer, and I'll never forget taking my kids to see Savion Glover and Bobby McFerrin at the Kentucky Center. And They didn't know what they were going to do. They meet just face to face with maybe about 3 feet between them, and they just start improvising sounds, tap dancing, words, all of this. It's that same thing, this fun being together and fun with improvisation, fun with knowing that even the space in between is part of it. So yeah, and music together. So I was birthed to 3 years old. So pregnant moms would come, they'd bring their babies. Babies have this great imitation. And you check out, is a baby crying because it needs its diaper changed, it's uncomfortable and it hurts, or if it's in pain or it's hungry, and check those things out first. And then if not, listen to the sound. And part of the training is knowing that it will imitate like the chord or the keynote of even a blower on a air conditioning or a heater, or a sound in the room will match a note, and the baby will be matching the sound of the ambient sound in the room. Babies love to imitate and see what it is. And so it's wild. It was just so great to be in a circle, and the adults would sing because we wanted to teach community singing, that it is a selective survival skill in evolution, to be able to sing, to be able to entrain a movement. Like I was telling you with the elder community, mm-hmm. They would begin, if one person began a movement, everybody else would just start doing that. And if you said, go ahead, do it bigger, do it littler, see how it is to go fast or slow with it. Just see where your tempo is. And we'll do this all together like a big amoeba. And then most amazing things, like one lady who hadn't spoken at all, she knew all the words to, this is an elder community, you could use the same, because good principles are good principles. She knew all the words to a tisket, a tasket, a green and yellow basket. Mm-hmm. She sang them, and we finished, and she was laughing, and she said, I haven't sung that. So I remembered singing it with my brother when we were little in the front yard. And she knew all the words. So, yeah, entrainment. Humans like to be tribal. And
well, Rebecca, your multi-talented life, what does the quote, bloom where you're planted, mean to you?
Well, thank you for asking. I'd say that means that wherever your feet, your belly button, your body kind of touches the earth, and whoever you're with, yourself, another, or a whole group of people, breathe with a beginning, a middle, an end to your breath. Feel everything, and especially just that this is the time you have to be alive. That's what bloom where you're planted means to me. If you're right there, that's the future. And you can have this dream of spring, but you're going to pay attention to that. It's winter here, going into winter here in Louisville, Kentucky. But if I want to spring differently, I could maybe get a ticket to go to Florida or Costa Rica.
Bloom somewhere warmer.
Yeah. Wherever I am, I have to be there now. I mean, I got to read Ram Dass's poems several times, Richard Alpert. I loved him, and Jeffrey and Jayutal, who would play kirtan for him as I'd see him in California or in Louisville, yes, Ram Dass. But he wrote that big famous book. I mean, it wasn't that big, but it was purple, and it said, "Be here now." And that's what bloom where you're planted means to me.
Well, I so have enjoyed having you as a guest. And what is next for you?
Well, I would say I reduced that to 3 words: travel, healing, HEALING, particularly my spine, and fascination. With so travel, I have a trip planned to go up to New York City in January. I have a spinal situation as a result of those car accidents years ago, and the brain injury, which I went to a spinal doctor yesterday, who said, at this time, if I did this surgery on you, you'd have to have it. It's not easy. And he said, it's not the hardest surgery I do in a day, the doctor at the Leatherman Spine Center. But he said it would be a big event for you because it would have to have metal rods. So I decided, and I said, what else can I do? You know, it's good to ask questions. What else? And he said, well, keep doing what you're doing. Physical therapy with so what's been working is a saltwater warm therapy pool. And so I said, gosh, if I could, and that's been working. That had been, of all the therapies I'd been doing, that one really worked. With another place called Watts. It's a therapy called Watsu. And you have warm water and salt water. And so I said, gosh, if I could just really be a lily in a lily pond, you know, growing like a lily with my feet down in yummy mud, and the salt water buoyant around me, that would be just fine. And so the spinal doctor said, well, you could do that in Angkor Wat. There is actually a place where people go to heal their spines, and by doing lotus lily pod exercises. So that's a far out. I'm pretty fascinated with that. So I'm going to imagine being a lily and a lotus wherever I am, and bloom where I'm planted like that. The healing of my spine and taking good care of that too, because you know, you have openings, portals. I'm not going to choose going through that one. I'm going to see what else opens to for healing for myself and to others. And I'd like to take a lot of people with me, as Gabrielle did, and then travel to New York City to dance. It's one of the first times that Live Wire with Lorca Simons, we developed the Love Letters to a Raven, and to dance with Lorca and Peter Fodera in a wonderful studio, all in person, in January, going to New York City. And then in February, I'm looking forward to going to Shakertown, to where my friend is coming with possibly her 35 Basset Hounds. Who knew that Basset Hounds run races? But they're going to do that at Shakertown in February, Kentucky.
That sounds exciting.
Then Asheville, North Carolina in March, and Joshua Tree to practice dancing the Seer, SEER, in April. And then hopefully Ireland again. There's a 5 rhythms teacher there that I want to collaborate with, and we're going to teach at the Ireland's Museum of Modern Art. They have big lawn and they have performance art things, and we thought we might gather some teachers and people there. Maybe the Paul Brock band would show up, and Dennis Carey would, you know, whenever you have live musicians to do this stuff with, it's gobs of fun.
Absolutely.
And so always dancing with the seen and the unseen. It's oh gosh, one other little tale. I said my dad was and he made a deal with God. And so Dad died in 1989, sudden heart attack. And so did the Emperor Hirohito, 1989. I don't know what he died of, but he died in 1989. And the Berlin Wall fell. There was freedom. So I would be dancing 5 rhythms in a month long, and with an elderly Japanese man. We don't talk, but I would be. You watch your thoughts as you move, and I would suddenly be having a grand conversation with my father, who would be in the unseen, saying, "Dad, look at this peaceful collaboration with an elderly Japanese man who's here. Isn't this fun?" And I could imagine my dad saying, "Yes, this is progress." So I got a chance to read that man's palm, and his wife, Toshi and Yasuko. It turned out he was Emperor Hirohito's brother.
Oh, wow.
And I read Muhammad Ali's palm. And so just continuing to hold hands, read the map of the lines in the palm. Having not been, I'm not you, Laura. So I don't know. If I read a map and say, here's what I see, then you tell me what it really is, what it is. This is a map. I'm making this up based on lines of like an actuary. I read, oh gosh, probably 50 actuaries' palms one night in Wausau, Wisconsin, when I was despairing of the letter W in 2008. And they built me a Baba Yaga hut on chicken legs and put dry ice around it. And at least 50 actuaries came in, had their palms read, and they said, "You do what we do. Nobody knows what's going to happen, not even actuaries." It can be pretty close, but every single moment is new.
You have such an exciting philosophy, and it's been, again, a wonderful thing to have you on our Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, sponsored by Never Too Late Cafe. This is Laura Womack, your host, saying bye for now, and thank you again, Rebecca. I so appreciate you joining us today.
You're welcome.
All right, bye-bye now.
Bye.